If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum leadership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. I love Anchor because it's really easy to use, very accessible to record your podcast, and has excellent sound quality. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, I am Jennifer Lynn Purcell, aka Opportunity Butterfly, bringing to you a living with an invisible learning challenge where we will discuss the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD. I don't know if you're a new listener or not, but I would like to share with you where I get most of my articles for this podcast. I've recently learned about a nonprofit that I would really like to help. It's the NVLD project. In addition to doing research on NVLD and working to get it back on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, that is the DSM, they provide support groups for those with NVLD. You can find the NVLD project at www.nvld.org. All proceeds from this podcast and the ads will go towards the NVLD project. I will include the link for this in the description of the podcast. Please go to livingwithnld.com to learn more about my podcast. Also, I would like to announce that I now have created a YouTube channel for this podcast. I will post the link for this in the description for you. Today we are going to talk about being made fun of while having NLD. This is not going to be easy for me to record because it involves being made fun of and feeling invisible while I was sexually abused by my cousin. If you have experienced these things before, you may be triggered by listening to this episode. And you may also hear me being emotional because I have experienced these things. The article that I'm going to use from the NVLD project is called Speaking for the Silent Majority, and it is by Vivian, who is a 4-year college student and has a BSN and is enrolled in a dual degree program for her BA and is in a pre-law history and has a minor in philosophy. Upon graduation from college, she was able to apply to law school to become a nurse attorney. At the age of 17 years old, she was finally diagnosed with NVLD after many misdiagnoses. She is currently fighting for equal education opportunities for NVLD students and raising awareness for NVLD. Thank you, Vivian. Vivian and I are speaking for the silent ones, or for the ones that may be afraid to stand up for themselves because they are afraid of the consequences. Quote, students were very harsh on me as well because once you are in special education, especially in the public school environment, you were targeted immediately. I was called SPED for special education and told by students how dumb I was, unattractive, and they laughed at me constantly. End quote. I can relate to Vivian because there were many times I felt invisible in my life, especially when I was being sexually abused by my cousin and no one knew about it until I was 12 years old. By the way, that started when I was about 6 or 4 years old, I think. There's a song by Hunter Hayes that is called Invisible that you should listen to if you have ever felt invisible, even though you want to scream out, hello, don't you see me? Or hello, can't you see something is wrong and is happening? Well, sometimes you can't see if the person doing it is really sneaky and secretive about it. Other times it is so obvious that you're being made fun of, but you don't know because you're so innocent and inexperienced and naive. And that will describe to you what happened to me when I was a girl in Girl Scouts, and I was 10 years old. But before I tell you that story, I want to read to you my first personal essay that I did for college because it will give you some good background information about how I grew up. So, homeschooled before college. Every September, school came to me in boxes. In elementary school, the boxes contained a computer, art supplies, musical instruments, and textbooks. By high school, the boxes held microscopes, calculators, and the great American novels. My school is California Virtual Academy, an online charter school I have attended since first grade. This education allowed me to travel extensively, required me to explore different ways to socialize, and empowered me to work independently. Travel has broadened my worldview and inspired me to work for a more humane and just world. My non-traditional schooling has given me the confidence to do so. When I was 8, I heard the Dalai Lama say that to change the world, one should travel and make friends. I have done that in each of the 23 countries I have visited. I've seen the African woman walk barefooted to find water, and illiterate Mayan women sign their microfinance loans with their thumbprints. I've worked alongside Peruvians building a community greenhouse funded with microcredit and help provide laptops for students in Guatemala. Throughout my travels, I've made friends and come to understand how access to education and small loans gives people the strength and opportunity to overcome adversity. Though our basic needs are the same, we don't have equal access to meeting them. Observing this make has made me take nothing for granted and has left me wanting to make education and microcredit more accessible for all. Travel has provided me with unique opportunities for socialization. I've interacted with people from different cultures and many walks of life, from humanitarians and scientists to world leaders. Consequently, I've learned to be more outgoing, creative, and flexible. I'm comfortable in different social settings and working with people from diverse backgrounds. I've come to believe that we need to appreciate the richness of our differences rather than being afraid of them. Having different social groups to interact with and seeing different businesses has inspired me to eventually run one of my own businesses. Whether it's working in developing countries in microfinance or at home in the field of sustainability, I'll need an entrepreneurial spirit. I honed this spirit as an online student, working independently and being responsible for creating my schedule and meeting all deadlines. I could work anywhere I had internet access. I've done schoolwork at home while riding in a car and at airports while waiting for international flights. The self motivation I've developed in high school will help me be successful. So, I read that for you to give you some background information about how I grew up. So, the first time I was made fun of was when I was in Girl Scouts. And like I said before, I read that essay for you there. Other times, it is so obvious that you are being made fun of, but you don't know because you are so innocent and inexperienced and naive. The first time I was made fun of was when I was about 10 years old, and in Girl Scouts, my troop was at an American Idol concert. I was dancing to one of the songs, and one of the cliques or groups of girls that was near me and my friend started laughing at me and pointing at me. I didn't know that they were making fun of me, so I just kept dancing because I was having a good time. Looking back at this now, I wouldn't change how I responded to this because I was standing up for who I was by showing that I didn't care about what they were thought about my dancing because I was having fun. I didn't know I had NLD back then. I had never even heard of anything about it or anything about something similar to it like ASD. Okay, this is kind of funny. The song Invisible that I talked about earlier in the episode just came on when I was writing this script. How serendipitous is that? So, I also want to share two other stories that I consider were attacks on me because of my gender, and one that might have been a prank. And I will also be sharing with you the two other personal essays I wrote for college because they give some background information about my life, and I think they also help with giving more information for the stories. So, the first story that I would want to tell you about happened when I was 12 years old in South Africa. And I want to read to you the personal essay that I wrote about that because it describes it really well, which is titled Four Pillars. Though I have never attended a brick and mortar school, when I was 12 years old, I journeyed halfway around the world to build one. Having grown up enjoying middle class comforts, nothing prepared me for the poverty and cultural differences I experienced in Malawi, Africa. Yet it was there that I discovered my core values. It takes guts, never give up, and live simply and share freely. At the building site, there were many jobs to do. I chose to join a circle of men making concrete. As I began mixing concrete using only a simple shovel, I felt the circle begin to close in on me. I knew what was happening. I was being excluded because I was a girl. When I refused to relinquish my space, one man tried to take my shovel away. I looked him squarely in the eyes, shook my head defiantly, and yanked it out of his grasp. Despite being afraid, I found the guts to stand up for myself. I rejoined their circle, committed to proving women can do the same jobs as men and should be allowed to. Every day brought new challenges. Spending hours doing breaking work, leveling the ground for the foundation required a persistence I didn't know I had. Staying well hydrated required consuming liters of water each day, which meant frequent visits to the bushes since there was nothing that resembled the bathrooms back home. Collecting sand from the riverbed was hard, but carrying it back in a bucket balanced on my head was harder. I was determined. I was not going to give up. With practice and studying the native women, I eventually, drum roll please, succeeded. I learned to live simply and share freely. The community didn't have much by our standards, yet they were happy and willing to share with us. I was often touched by their generosity and hospitality. At lunch, they insisted on serving us first, even though they had been working hard and were hungry too. They generously offered meat to us despite the difficulty of getting it and the fact we couldn't eat it for health reasons. Seeing their lifestyle made me realize I really don't need much to live a happy life and taught me to appreciate everything. 5 years later, I still live and breathe these values. I had the guts to stay running despite vomiting after my first time and eventually ran the Triple Crown. I never gave up in raising my first C to an A in AP Psychology, and I have lived more simply by wasting nothing. Since Africa, I have discovered who I am. I know the power of standing up for my beliefs and working hard. I want to empower others with this knowledge and inspire them to take their shovels back. To accomplish this, I draw strength from David Bauer's words. I am always impressed by what young people do when old people say it's impossible. I want to be one of those young people who does the impossible. So, I hope that was empowering and inspiring for you. Um, the last personal essay that I would like to read to you is about my sexual abuse. So, it might be triggering for you if you experienced that or know someone who has. And it's called Taking My Shovel Back Again. Is this enough? When I reached this point, I thought my application was complete. I felt proud of my grades and how I had expressed myself in my essays. Then I saw this optional essay prompt, and to be honest, I didn't want to do it. I thought my application was enough. But there's another shovel story I have not shared. This story explains what was going on behind the scenes for a better part of 12 years. From the time I was 6 until the time I was 12, I was sexually abused by my cousin. While trying to be a regular high school student, I was also going through the process of healing from this trauma. 2 months after I took my shovel back in Malawi, I took another bigger shovel back when I told my mom about the abuse. Before that, no one knew. I had felt alone and helpless for 6 years. But after telling my mom, I finally felt a big weight taken off of me. This began my healing process. At the same time that I enrolled in high school, I enrolled in therapy. I was adjusting to harder classes, stricter deadlines, and more homework while having constant triggers and nightmares about the abuse. Therapy gave me the strength to and skills to stop the nightmares and triggers, and the realization that helping others could also help me heal. Going to Guatemala to help those in need showed me that I was fortunate to have the support that I did. Nothing, Not everyone in my family supported me, though. Most of my extended family felt that I was partly to blame for the abuse. They thought I should have They thought I should have known it was wrong and said something sooner. While I was building the greenhouse in Peru, my relationship with my extended family members were falling apart. Our houses were once within walking distance, and we visited regularly. But when I realized they didn't believe me, all communication stopped. Their reactions broke my heart, but I learned something. I learned I couldn't change my extended family's beliefs, but I haven't let that discourage me from believing I could change the world. I had changed. I had become stronger because of my struggle and felt I could help others do the same. To get the knowledge and skills to do this, though, I had to complete high school and prepare for college. Like everyone else in my junior year, I was studying for my SATs. Unlike my peers, though, I was also preparing for a court hearing regarding the abuse. While writing my practice SAT essays, I was also writing my victim impact statement explaining the effects the abuse had on me. Articulating my pain and struggle and telling my story to the judge made me feel heard and empowered. Now, my senior year, I am wondering if this is enough. I realized that not having any contact with my grandparents wasn't enough for me. As I have been completing college applications, I have started to reach out to my grandparents. It has been a continuous process, but I look forward to it each week. Just as I am healing, just as my healing will continue, I know my education will also continue. So is this enough? For now, it has to be. Sorry, my reading was a little choppy there. It's not easy for me to read that essay. So that gives you some background for the last story that I'm going to share with you about being made fun of, which happened when I was in college. And this happened when I was a senior in college. And I believe this one was a prank. I'm not really sure if it was or not, but I think it was. So when I was walking to class, I usually use headphones because I like to listen to music when I walk. And at the beginning of my walk, sorry, it's not easy for me to read. So at the beginning of my walk from my apartment to class, I got silly stringed by 3 African American teenagers, 2 boys and 1 girl. To make matters worse, they throw the empty can at my back, and when I turned around after yelling, "Ouch," I see the girl videotaping the whole thing. I didn't attack them or anything. I just started to run away from them as fast as I could. This was easy to do because I do long distance running. I think I did ask them, why did they do that? Or told them to stop, but I couldn't hear their response because of my music. And all I could see was that they were laughing at me. As soon as I got far enough away from them, I took my backpack off and cleaned it up. I felt humiliated. I did call the Berkeley police and file a report after I got back from class and wrote down the details of the event. I was able to recall what the teens were wearing and what they looked like really well. I also was able to tell the officer where it happened, which was right by my apartment. And I think I was able to do this because of having NLD. And I think I responded the way I did because I didn't want to be violent, because I'm not naturally a violent person, and I didn't want to hurt them and, make the situation worse. And like I said in the beginning, I think it was just a prank because it looked like they were teenagers. Um, but I want to share with you something that I thought was really sweet. My apartment mate was really sweet to me when I told her the story. She felt sorry for me, even though she is a person of color. She understood that it was probably a prank, at least that's what the officer thought. She asked what I wanted to do after explaining to her what happened, and I said I wanted to go get a milkshake. We went to get one, and um, that was when I got a call from my brother, and he was going to come comfort me. But I thought I was going to be okay from just having my apartment mate with helping me. Looking back now, I wish I would have let him come because it was a humiliating experience and an embarrassing one too. Again, I'm not trying to attack anybody who's Black because I really don't think it was because of race. Um, I'm just saying that I responded more strongly because of having NLD, and I'm trying to support people who have NLD. And I know that there are some people who are out there and who are Black and have NLD. So I'm just wanting to say that I do respect African American, and I know African Americans, and I know that you have a hard life too, even if you don't have NLD. And I'm imagine it's even harder if you have an NLD and you are Black. So I'm sorry if you have both of those things. But what I'm trying to do here is that, like I said, I didn't throw any violence back at the teens because I'm not a violent person, and I knew that wasn't going to solve anything. I did have a bruise on my back where the spray can hit me, and my apartment mate helped me put some ointment on there to help it heal because I couldn't reach it. It was on the back of my back where I couldn't reach it. Um, my apartment mate was the best one I had in college. She would help take care of my dog Truffles when I wasn't at the apartment by feeding her and taking her out for me. And she would let Truffles roam the apartment while we were gone, so she wasn't cooped up in my room all day. And I think I responded the way I did because I am a strong woman and wanted to be nonviolent. I also probably took it to be more of an attack because of having an LD than being a woman. Also, you should listen to the song called It Is What It Is by Cloverdale because it is about accepting when you are going through something that is rough and you really don't want to be going through it. And so, whether you have been made fun of or feeling or felt invisible while having NLD, I and others who have these issues today. So, as I wrap up, I would like to have you share with me, if you're comfortable, a story of you being made fun of while having NLD. Please email me that story, or you can do the comment with the story on the blog page on the website called Living with NLD. And you can also do it on Spotify. If you do, sorry, if you listen on Spotify, you can email me with the story. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can email me the story. And I hope you enjoyed those stories today. I know that I might have messed up with the script, but again, that was because they were not easy for me to um, read because they're personal and a little private, but I think they will give you some helpful tips for how you might handle being made fun of while having NLD. And I hope you might have learned something new today. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for the podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. I also have an email for the podcast. It is called livingwithnld@gmail.com. Please email me if you know somebody with NLD that may want to be interviewed for the podcast, or if you personally have NLD and would want to be interviewed. I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having NLD. Please let me know what kind of things you would like to learn about NLD. Also, I would love for you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. See if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. And please feel free to go on YouTube and leave comments for me to respond to. I will respond to them as quickly as I can. And I also left the email on there for you to refer to. And thank you for listening today. I will talk to you next Friday.